From the Evening Standard, I'm David Marsland, and this is The Leader. Get the tools out, it's a bank holiday weekend and that DIY isn't going to do itself. And now that the shops are open again, you can start spending all that money you saved over lockdown on spectacular decorations for your home. I hear John Lewis has a sale on sofas. But if you really want to keep up with the Joneses, or Johnsons, you're going to have to pump up those credit cards. It's alleged that the number 11 Downing Street refurbishment cost £200,000. How? Our features writer Katie Strick's been adding up the bills for the Evening Standard, and she's with me now. Katie, if I wanted to spend 200 grand doing up my house, where would I start?
Well, David, it depends what sort of style you want to go for. I mean, it sounds as though Carrie has a very specific style. It could be Carrie and Boris together, but most of the reports are coming from her friends talking about her exquisite taste and her love of this sort of boho chic, glamorous look. It sounds as though she's been busy herself hand restoring some vintage furniture to replace the dark wooden furniture that was in the flat before. So presumably that was the subject of her famous John Lewis furniture nightmare comment.
Which is a comment that appears to be haunting Downing Street right now, whether or not anybody ever actually said it. It is, though, it's not just the furniture that's being replaced here, though. There's a big job being undertaken.
I think the floor has also been redone. So the flooring in the hallway has been stripped up and polished. The living area has been painted a deep green and is now often lit by candles, apparently. We know that Theresa May before them was a fan of candles, but presumably her high street choices weren't to Carrie's taste. Obviously, these changes are unlikely to add up to £100,000 or £200,000. So it sounds as though there's been quite a bit more in terms of a refurb that we don't know the details of. But what we do know is that the couple hired leading interiors expert Lulu Lytle, who's had a lot of publicity this week because she's said to have helped with the refurb. And that's where the price tag starts to make a little bit more sense.
And why is that, Katie?
So her fabrics are said to start at £100 a metre. Some of her popular items, such as the Cleveland chair, that alone costs £3,000 plus VAT. Boris Johnson reportedly told one minister that Carrie had ordered gold wall furnishings, which is, I know, something that Lytle is famous for. And that certainly doesn't come cheap. She's also famous for marble bathrooms and eco-friendly rattan furniture. And a full refit from Lytle is rumoured to start to run into the six figures, which is where that figure starts to make slightly more sense.
So this John Lewis nightmare comment that may or may not have ever been said, I mean, was there any John Lewis in number 11 Downing Street?
Well, a little bit. We do know that Theresa May didn't sort of make any major structural changes to the flat. She didn't spend any of that budget there. It sounds as though she just added a few pieces of statement furniture. So there was a John Lewis chrome table lamp in there, we have heard. So assuming Carrie wasn't the biggest fan of that. Also a red 3-seater sofa. We're not quite sure where that was from, possibly a John Lewis number. A £42 candle. A glass-topped coffee table from Habitat, so not from John Lewis. So yeah, it sounds as though Theresa May liked her high street name. She didn't go sort of these niche designers necessarily in the same way that Carrie and Boris have gone for.
So it doesn't sound like Theresa May changed much from when David and Samantha Cameron were in that flat. So what did people say about their decorative choices?
So the Camerons are reported to have spent £64,000 roughly. So that's double the allowance of £30,000 that prime ministers are given to refurb that flat. But they reportedly paid it from their own pocket. So Samantha Cameron is an interior expert herself. So she, I think, was pretty hands-on with what she did. I think they inherited a sort of 1960s style kitchen. So they made that over and made it a lot more minimalist with sort of brushed steel furniture and applications and floating shelves and coffee machines and toasters that were sort of stainless steel. There's a picture of her sitting with Michelle Obama on a bright yellow sofa with that kitchen in the background, and it's all very modern and minimalist. We know that she sort of redid the hallway with lots of family photos. I think they were said to entertain in that entrance hallway with this grand sweeping staircase quite a bit. So she sort of made her mark there. The sitting room was covered with very stylish raffia wallpaper, and that was from John Lewis. So perhaps that was something that Carrie hasn't liked. Possibly that's why she's redoing the wallpaper now. But that was a John Lewis number, so Theresa May would have inherited that. And yeah, the bedrooms upstairs, I think, remained pretty simple and sort of painted, I think, blue and pink for their sons and daughters.
Is £200,000 a lot? I mean, obviously that's an unconfirmed figure, but is that a lot in comparison to previous prime ministers, and how much has been spent on other families living in that flat?
So the Blairs are said to have spent more than the Camerons. They're said to have spent £127,000. So it's not so far off the sort of estimated figure that Johnson and Symonds are rumoured to have spent. I think that a lot of the criticism or the sort of speculation has come from why they would want to spend that much when the flat apparently that they inherited was so spotless, is what people have said. And so when they have fewer children that living there than previous prime ministers, did it really need quite such an overhaul? However, when you look at something like Lulu Lytle's Instagram, or certainly the Instagram for her company, Sown Britain, based on Pimlico Road, if you have a look through that, you can see that it's a very different style to what the Camerons and the Blairs had in the flat. Theirs was very sort of minimalist and light and airy, whereas what we know about Symonds is that she liked something a bit more characterful and intricate and a bit more rustic. So it's suddenly a bit easier to see why it would have cost so much.
Yeah, and to be fair, spotless or not, it's not theirs. When you move into a new home, you want to put your own identity onto it to make it your house, don't you?
Absolutely. And it is your home, but it is also the place that you are photographed sometimes, and you entertain guests such as the Obamas coming over. And so absolutely, you can see why a prime minister would want to put their own stamp on it, and they're starting a new family. They really want to make it feel like home.
You can read Katie's article on this at standard.co.uk, and that's the leader for this week. We're off on Monday, so we'll be back on Tuesday with all the news, interviews, analysis and features you need at 4 p.m. Hit the follow button on your podcast provider to make sure you don't miss out.